Shalom from Israel to all of Daystar viewers around the world. I am Moshe Bar Tzvi, the producer of Israel Now News. We at Israel Now News are dedicated to bringing you the full story and the truth about Israel from Israel. It's written in the Holy Bible when David said in Psalm 43:3, "O send out your light and your truth. Let them lead us. Let them bring us to your holy hill and to your tabernacle." And God says in Zechariah 8:31, "I will return to Zion and dwell in the midst of Jerusalem. Jerusalem shall be called the city of truth, the mountain of the Lord of hosts, the holy mountain. Always search for the truth, and the truth shall set you free." John 8:31. I hope you enjoyed the program. God bless you from Jerusalem. Shalom, shalom.
Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan Elrom.
And I'm Erin Viner.
In our top story, Iran steps up enrichment of uranium. Iran claims that it has begun enriching uranium at 20% Fisher purity at its Fordow facility. Built deep within a mountain, the nuclear facility, located near the Muslim holy city of Qom in central Iran, is completely fortified. Iran's decision to move their nuclear program to the underground site shows that they are insulating the proliferation from possible attacks. Reports circulated last week that the Iranians had begun supplying uranium gas to the centrifuges at the site. This is the final step in preparing centrifuges to enrich uranium. Iran has been saying for months that it will move its highest grade uranium production to Fordow and sharply increase production to full scale.
After grave warnings from Iran not to return to the Persian Gulf, senior officials from the United States and the United Kingdom have made statements that their nations will increase their presence in the area. Pentagon spokesperson George Little said the deployment of U.S. military assets in the Persian Gulf region will continue as it has for decades. A spokesperson for the U.S. Navy said the United States is committed to ensuring the flow of maritime traffic in waterways critical to global commerce. England has sent its most advanced naval vessel to the area, a Type 45 destroyer. The HMS Daring is equipped with the world's most sophisticated radar equipment and is capable of shooting down any type of missile in Iran's arsenal. British Secretary of Defense Philip Hammond warned that the United Kingdom will take military action against Iran if it attempts to block the Strait of Hormuz, saying that any attempt by Iran to block the waterway in retaliation for sanctions against its oil exports would be illegal and unsuccessful. Hammond vowed that the Royal Navy stands ready to join any action to keep the strait open. Iran has made numerous threats to close the strategic route through which 40% of the world's oil is transported. Iran has announced that it will conduct another round of naval exercises in the Strait of Hormuz next month. The Revolutionary Guard is calling this drill their greatest round of war games to date.
Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad met with Venezuelan leader Hugo Chavez in Caracas last week. The men hugged, laughed, and lavished each other with praise. In a ceremony to welcome the Iranian leader, Chavez joked that he had a nuclear bomb hidden under the lawn of his Miraflores palace. He said, "Ahmadinejad and I are going into the Miraflores basement now to set our sights on Washington and launch cannons and missiles." U.S. officials have expressed concern over Venezuela's close ties with Iran. Venezuela could provide Iran with a much-needed economic lifeline in the face of increasing sanctions.
The U.S. Navy rescued 13 Iranian fishermen who were kidnapped and held hostage for more than 40 days by Somali pirates in the northern Arabian Sea. This rescue came just 2 days after Iran warned the United States not to return to the Persian Gulf. And meanwhile, another mysterious explosion in Tehran has killed a nuclear scientist on the first anniversary of another blast that killed a nuclear engineer. 32-year-old Mustafa Ahmadi Rashan died after a motorcyclist placed a magnetic bomb on his car. Iran's official Fars news agency has accused Israel of being behind the terror attack, which comes as the latest in a series of unexplained explosions in the hardline Islamic Republic.
Amir Mirzaei Hekmati, the former U.S. Marine translator accused of spying for the CIA in Iran, has been sentenced to death. The dual Iranian-U.S. citizen, Hekmati was born in Arizona. He served in the U.S. Marines at bases in Afghanistan and Iraq. Currently employed by a civilian contractor, he was on assignment in Qatar when he visited Iran. His father, a professor at a community college in Michigan, insists that his 28-year-old son is not a spy and that he was in Iran visiting his grandmother. The U.S. State Department has demanded Hekmati's release, saying, "We've maintained from the beginning that the charges against him were a fabrication, and we call on the Iranian government to release him immediately." Last week, he was found guilty of working with a hostile country, and in a closed court session in the Tehran Revolutionary Court, Hekmati was sentenced to death. According to Iranian law, he has 20 days to appeal.
The United States and Israel are ramping up for a major coordinated military exercise. The drill will highlight the two countries' joint missile defense project. It is designed to improve defense strategies, test air defenses against incoming missiles and rockets, and practice cooperation between the Israeli and United States armed forces. This is the largest joint exercise between the two countries on record, and thousands of U.S. and IDF soldiers are set to participate in the drills, which will commence in Israel. The two armies will likely be testing the Arrow missile defense system, which was jointly funded and has been in development by the United States and Israel since 1986. Created in response to the acquisition of long-range surface-to-surface missiles by surrounding Arab states, the Arrow is the most advanced missile defense program in the world.
The unrest in Syria has neither ceased nor slowed. Violence continues to rage in the streets of Damascus as the third suicide bombing in as many weeks claimed the lives of 26 people. The Arab League, recognizing that their mission of monitors into Syria has been unsuccessful in deterring the violence, met in Cairo to discuss the possibility of requesting the United Nations to join their mission. The League could not reach a consensus on the issue, but did agree to allow UN experts to train the monitors in Cairo before the delegation departed for Syria. 165 Arab League monitors have been granted access into Syria, but the League and members of the Syrian opposition allege that the observers are restricted by Bashar al-Assad's security forces. Monitors are not allowed direct access to the protesters, and the Assad regime is accused of concealing the violence the government is committing against civilians. Secretary General of the Arab League, Nabil el-Arabi, said that the observers will see their month-long mission to fruition in Syria. The Fatah Central Committee is reconsidering its reconciliation with the terrorist organization Hamas. The two parties have been estranged since 2007, when Hamas seized control of the Gaza Strip and sparked a civil war, leaving hundreds dead. Fatah and Hamas have recently attempted to reconcile and form a Palestinian unity government. Negotiations began to sour early in the process when neither party could agree upon an interim government. The parties signed a reconciliation agreement in Cairo last year and are scheduled to hold elections on May 4th. Tensions between the two parties have increased recently when 4 Fatah members were denied access to a checkpoint by Hamas security officials. Hamas released a statement saying that Fatah was more interested in the upcoming peace talks with Israel than in Palestinian unity. Fatah is in fact willing to negotiate with Israel, something that Hamas insists that it will never do. Hamas also said if Fatah has made a decision to backtrack from reconciliation in favor of returning to negotiation with the Zionist enemy, they should bear full responsibility for the consequences of such decisions before the Palestinian people. Aaron Viner has more now on the Israeli-Palestinian peace process.
The chief negotiator for the Palestinian Authority, Saeb Erekat, met with Israeli envoy Yitzhak Molcho in Jordan for the second round of peace talks in just 1 week. Palestinian officials said that they do not expect any progress. While the meetings with Israel have caused tension between Fatah and Hamas, a representative for Fatah dismissed the peace talks as merely exploratory and clarified that they were not serious negotiations. Israel's Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman expressed his own skepticism, saying that the Palestinians were meeting with the Israelis in bad faith and that they only agreed to sit down with Israel because they couldn't refuse a royal invitation from Jordan's King Abdullah. These were the first direct talks between Israel and the Palestinians since 2010.
The third annual gala dinner for the Larger Than Life organization was held in Tel Aviv this week. 2,500 people attended the event, including politicians, business leaders, professors, and community activists. Responsible for saving 1,500 children with cancer in Israel every year, Larger Than Life is the biggest nonprofit organization of its type in Israel. By helping families pay for medicine and other various needs, Larger Than Life aims to improve the quality of life and the welfare of children with cancer. Daystar Television Network was given special recognition at the event for their generous donations throughout 2011. Joni and Marcus Lamb were honored for their ongoing support of Israel and of Larger Than Life. In a moving gesture, Daystar gave an additional special donation to Larger Than Life at the event.
And that concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host Josh Reinstein, and we're here in Jerusalem at our rooftop studio, which means we need you guys to pray for rain. Our guest today is the international president and CEO of Bridges for Peace, Rebecca Brimmer. Rebecca, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you, but please call me Becky. All my friends do.
Great. Becky, tell us a little bit about Bridges for Peace.
Well, Bridges for Peace is working to build relationships between Christians and Jews all over the world. It's the saddest thing to me that thousands of years of bad history exists between our peoples, and the only ones that can change that reality is us. So we're working with Christians all over the world to make a different future. You know, that's what it's all about, is changing the future.
Well, you've definitely changed the relationship between Jews and Christians here in Israel. Bridges for Peace has been around for decades, and one of your flagship projects is the food bank. Tell us a little bit about the food bank. How much food do you actually give out in Israel monthly?
Well, you know, what we started with was it's an educational organization. But then we realized if we're going to change relationships, we got to give people a way to interact. So we started collecting money from Christians, and today we're giving about 70 tons of food every month to 27,000 people, 52 communities all over Israel. And it's all being done with Christian funds to support the people of Israel. And it's being done so that they know that Christians are doing it, because we want to change the future.
Well, you've been here for many years. Have you seen the relationship between Jews and Christians changing in the last few years here in Israel?
Oh, definitely. You know, since the start of the Christian Allies Caucus and the Knesset, and since tourism during the Intifada from Christians never stopped, there's been a tremendous understanding within Israel and amongst the Jewish community. I believe that Christians are the best friends that Israel has. But that's not enough. I was in Spain last week. I went to heritage sites in Spain, and I walked into medieval synagogues where before thousands of people came to worship, Jewish people came to worship, and now virtually no Jews, and most of those places are Catholic churches. And I stood in those places and I said, wait a minute. This is not what we should be seeing. We should be seeing these synagogues full of Jewish people worshiping God as they did for centuries in these places. So there's still a lot of work to be done. You know, there's a lot of places around the world where Christians are still not understanding that God has a special covenant plan for the Jewish people. And we need to cooperate with what God's plans are, not to go along with what historically has been the bad response of Christians to their Jewish brothers.
Well, you're still involved in a lot of educational programs. One of the new things that you've launched is this series of books for children. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, we've been working with adults for many, many years, but we realized if we can catch the hearts of kids and we can show them what the Bible says and why they should be interested in Israel and why they should like their Jewish classmates, then we can make a real difference. So we've just now brought out our first book, our first two. We came out with a coloring book about Israeli holidays and another one about the land and people of Israel with games and puzzles and all sorts of things aimed at 7 to 12-year-olds. And our hope is that we can take the hearts of kids now and make a difference for the future. I came to Israel when I was a kid. Did you know that? My dad brought me. And I was only 13 years old, and it got inside of me. Here I am still, decades later, still involved in doing something to make a difference. And I think that if we can catch kids' hearts, we can really change the future.
You know, you're a Christian leader here in Jerusalem. What does it mean to you as a Christian to be able to live daily in the city of Jerusalem, the holy city?
Oh, well, I recognize that it's not always holy after living here 22 years. but I wouldn't live anywhere else. I love it. It's vibrant. Everywhere you turn, there's something that reminds you of the Bible. The people are interested in each other. You know, I like to tell people when they say, oh, well, isn't it dangerous to live in Israel? I said, hey, we don't have kids, pictures of missing kids on our milk cartons. You know, people watch out for kids here. We care about our neighbors. I think it's a great place to live.
Well, you know, our tourism ministry has a great slogan. They say if you like the book, you'll love the country. So I think that really makes sense when you walk on the streets of Jerusalem. You know, Becky, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message would you have for our audience?
Well, I would just like to say two things. To the Christians watching this show, I would like to say that you can make a difference for the future, and I encourage you to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. God has a plan for this people and this country that you can be a part of. For any Jews that might be watching, I would just like to say you have some friends in the world. You're not alone. We're standing with you, and millions of Christians all over the world are standing today for the peace of Jerusalem.
Well, we're so thankful for that Christian support. Thank you for being on the show, Becky.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
Up next, Shining Light from Israel.
What makes the miracles of Jesus even more miraculous? Standing where they happened, in Israel. Come visit Capernaum, where Jesus restored a paralytic's helpless legs. Sail the Sea of Galilee, where Jesus walked on the water. Stroll through the Garden of Gethsemane, where Jesus healed a servant's ear. To learn more about standing where it all happened, in Israel, visit www.goisrael.com. Come visit Israel.
Hillary Clinton, at a press conference with Palestinian Media Watch in the U.S. Senate, criticized Palestinian television and school books.
We must stop the propaganda to which Palestinian children are being exposed, because it basically profoundly poisons the minds of these children.
Hamas uses its television station to indoctrinate Palestinian children to value violence, hatred, and martyrdom. Palestinian children are exposed on Hamas television to charming characters who poison them with hatred.
انت ليش اسمك اسود وانت شكلك ارنوب؟
لانه يا هذا الارنوب دايما انسان ايش؟ مش كويس، صح ولا لا؟ وانسان جبان، لكن انا اسود ان شاء الله اللي هخوف اليهود واكل لهم اكل ان شاء الله رب العالمين.
طيب أماني، يعني أنت رأيتي الهجمة التي يشنها الغرب على الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم. نعم، أكيد كلنا سوف نقاطع المنتجات الدنماركية.
نحاربهم لأنهم سبوا على رسول الله.
إن شاء الله حنقتلهم، صح ولا لا؟
بإذنه تعالى.
حنعضهم وناكلهم، صح ولا لا؟
Children are encouraged to seek death as heroic martyrs for Allah.
رشاش ومصحف بيدينا وكبرنا وكبر الحق في عيون المظلومين دم الطاهر يثمر كرامة وعز ملايين بكرة الدم الطاهر يثمر كرامة
Even in kindergarten, children are indoctrinated to aspire to violence and martyrdom. This music video simulates the reaction of a 5-year-old girl to her mother's suicide terror attack. The young girl concludes, "Bombs are more precious than children."
شايلة ايه بين احضانك يا ماما مكاني لعبة ليا او هدية جايبها لي ارجعي يا ماما حكاية انا عبيد عشاننا كنت شايلة ما بين ايديك لغم مكاني دلوقتي بس عرفت ايه كان اغلى منا دلوقتي بس عرفت حب مش هيكون كلام انا بعد ماما على الخطاب امي
Hamas teaches their children to see themselves as the ones who will subjugate the entire world under Islam.
والذي نضع وإياكم حجر الأساس لقيادة العالم بقيادة إسلامية. سننتصر يا بوش وسننتصر يا شارون بيت. خلاص مع السلامة. سننتصر يا أولمارت. سننتصر يا كوندريزا.
مين أنت؟ إيش اللي جايبك هنا في دار؟ بابا أنت قتلت في حرب العراق وماما أنت قتلتها أنت والصهاينة المجرمين في لبنان. قل إجي يا باج أنا لازم أخذ حقي منك بسيف الإسلام. خلص بتوب بس ما تقتل. وين حراسة؟ حرقوني. ما في حراس وشعبك استسلم يا بوش. اجيت وجبت آلاف مؤلفة من الأطفال، من أطفال فلسطين وأطفال العراق وأطفال سوريا ولبنان وأفغانستان. أنا بدي أعطيك البداكية. تعال معي على البيت الأبيض أنت وأصحابك كليتهم. بس أنت نجس يا بوش وما بينفع تدخل البيت الأبيض لأنه أصبح جامع ومسجد كبير لأمة الإسلام والمسلمين جميعا. حقتلك يا بوش لأنك مصيرك. حقتلك يا بوش حقتلك.
We must stop the propaganda to which Palestinian children are being exposed. These children deserve an education that instills respect for life and peace instead of glorifying death and violence. The videos we viewed at that Senate hearing were a clear example of child abuse that basically profoundly poisons the minds of these children.
What makes the miracles of Jesus even more miraculous? Standing where they happened, in Israel. Come explore Jerusalem, where Jesus opened blind eyes. Visit the hills of Galilee, where Jesus fed the multitude. Stroll through Capernaum, where Jesus lived and taught and healed. To learn more about standing where it all happened in Israel, visit www.goisrael.com. Come visit Israel.
Stay tuned for Torah Truth from Zion.
Shalom, my name is Rabbi Ari Abramowitz from thelandofisrael.com. I'm here to discuss this week's Torah portion, the portion of Shmot, Exodus. Now, the redemption of the Jewish people is beginning to unfold. hundreds of years of slavery will soon come to an end. And Moses will be that prophet, that incredible leader that will lead them into their freedom. But it hasn't happened yet. He's walking on a mountain after he's already fled from Egypt, and he sees a bush that is burning, but it's not being consumed, and he feels the presence of God in this bush. And then God starts to actually communicate and speak to Moses. And he says, remove from your feet your shoes, for this is holy ground. He removes his shoes. But then something very interesting happens. God says in chapter 3, verse 8, he says, I have come down to rescue them from the Egyptians and to bring them out of a land to a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey. A land flowing with milk and honey. That is the purpose that God says he is redeeming the Jewish people from slavery in Egypt. But what about the Torah, the Bible? A Jew would expect to hear to receive the Torah, to keep the commandments. But God doesn't say that. He says to a land flowing with milk and honey. He then gives a sign later as he says, I will bring them to a mountain where they will serve me. But the point of it was to redeem them into the land of Israel. Why? Well, our sages tell us that the commandments of the Torah, the Bible, can only be fully completed and fulfilled in the land of Israel. That is the only place that we can really do the commandments and really connect to God. Moses' final request of God. He was one of the greatest prophets of world history, probably the best prophet. One of the greatest leaders of Jewish history. His final request said, please God, let me enter the land of Israel. That's all he wanted, and he was denied that request. Now our sages say, what did he want to enter the land of Israel for? Was it to eat the fruits? Why would they ask that, to eat the fruits? Well, the fruits of the land of Israel are imbued with the sparks and the holiness of the land. And when a person is eating the fruits of the land of Israel, our physical body becomes the land of Israel. For all we eat becomes our body. And we are able to connect to God in a way that never in history were we able to connect when we eat the fruits and live in the land of Israel. So come, join us in the land of Israel. The greatest prophet wasn't able to, but you can come and join us in the land of Israel. Our fruits are delicious.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner. Please join us again next week for all your Israel updates.